All right, welcome to Simple Healthy Life, where our goal is to have real, insightful conversations on topics that we find interesting. And today, MJ, kind of going back and forth about a little bit on the topic, and we have this general sense that we want to talk a little bit about building authentic connections, right? Um, I kind of have like a little story slash piece of evidence on building connections. So I believe there's a study done, kind of like a social study done by a man named Stanley Milgram, who I believe was a social scientist, but could be wrong. Nonetheless, what he did was he wondered how many people does it take for one piece of communication to get to a select individual across the United States. And so
How long ago was this? What?
1950s.
Okay, so there was no Instagram, no.
No, like yeah, no, just like let me follow that person and DM them, right?
Okay. All right.
So 1950s, 1960s. What he did, Stanley Milgram. I love his name. What he did is he took 150 letters and he sent them to people in Nebraska. And what it said was in this letter, it said, "Here, please forward this to this person in Boston, a stockbroker in Boston. But please only forward this to people that you actually know, people that you have connections with, that you could, I don't know, say that you have some sort of weak or loose tie to. And when you forward it to that person, have them write their name down and they'll forward it to the person that they know. And the goal is to get this letter to the stockbroker in Boston." And so everyone did it. And well, I don't know if everyone did it, but a good majority of people like forwarded this letter, and a lot of them did get to the stockbroker in Boston. And what he found was Stanley kind of collected all this evidence, and he found that is very interesting because you might think that, especially at that time, it would take a number of people. It might take 10, 20, 30, 40 people to actually get to this stockbroker. But on average, it actually only took six people. It only ran through six people for it to get to that specific person, the stockbroker. And so that's where that idea of like the 6 degrees of separation come from. So we're only 6 degrees separated from any person you can imagine, right? And I think that's kind of cool. And what is even more interesting here is that he found that 75%, somewhere in that range, 75% of those letters actually only ran through 3 different people connected to the stockbroker. And so I don't know, one of them was like a clerk, like a store clerk, and et cetera, et cetera. But what he found is that, yeah, most of those letters ran through those people. They were like gatekeepers to the stockbroker. And it has since been identified that those people we would call them as connectors, these individuals who just have this uncanny ability to connect and build social networks and, like I know a guy type of people, right? And as I was thinking about this, I hit a number of people, or as I was reading about this, I had a number of people who I thought of as connectors. I don't necessarily think of myself as a connector, but I do think of, some friends and stuff, people who've even in my network have connected me to many other different people. And you were one of them. You were one of them as I thought of a connector. And you do use the language that connectors use. I know a guy, or I have a guy for this, or I went and talked to this individual. So whether or not you think about it that way for yourself, I think it's true. At least is how I view you.
Wow. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a cool thing to be.
Yeah.
Interesting that this topic's come up. Interesting overall. So this guy cast pretty wide net. What you're saying is
Right.
he essentially just at random 150 letters out
I
there.
believe so. Yeah.
Okay. And then I kind of picture it like being, and it gets down to 3 and then gets down to 1, like kind of like 150, and then maybe some of those don't get sent out at all, and then
Mhm.
kind of goes down to 50, and then whatever down to 3 people, and then into this one person's hands. I can remember sitting through so many sales trainings, like how do you get to this person? How do you find the decision maker, right? How do you get past the gatekeeper? And they've been doing sales training on this probably from the 50s, right?
Right.
And it's interesting how much that's changed with
Yeah.
the social media and, DMing, and, you can essentially just, I wonder what that looks like now. I
Right.
wonder what that looks like now, as far as, like, let's say you were like, I got to get LeBron James this idea, right? It's going to change the life of so many people, but we just got to find a way to get to like, what do you do? Do you go and, I don't even know what you do. I bet we could ask people younger than us and they would have a strategy for it. It's kind of interesting to think about.
Well, I mean, I think it, interestingly enough, I'm sure it would probably be much of the same way. I don't think you can just DM these people, and I mean, I'm sure you can, and I'm sure that, every once in a while that will pay off and people will see that. But chances are, so, the bigger the person gets, I mean, they're probably not managing their own social media account, and there's probably not a good way to access them. And, you certainly wouldn't be the only person,
Right,
so,
right.
yeah, I think it would be quite hard. And I think you might need those, connections. You might need to know the guy who knows LeBron or whatever, the
Right.
example was.
So when I think about connection and, like, and thanks for the compliment, because I consider it a compliment.
Mhm.
One of the, as I'm saying this, you're picking up this mug that says community,
Mm.
and I have been really working at kind of developing my own community. I read something a long time ago that said something to the effect of, like, every man needs a doctor, a dentist, a lawyer, a plumber. Right? Every man needs people around them that have certain skills. And I don't think you just go and get them. You don't go and search out, like, I need a plumber friend, like, I think what you do is you take a genuine interest in people.
Mhm.
And when you take that genuine interest in people, you find out what they do. And then you offer them insight into what you do, and you be genuine back. And then you start to grow relationships. And, that's kind of how we talked, how we met, right? We just met a couple of years ago at jiu-jitsu, just took a genuine interest in who you were as a person. We found out we both enjoyed these certain books, both enjoyed talking to each other. And then, now I have a registered dietitian friend,
Mm.
so if someone tells me that they're struggling with kind of their own journey, I think, oh, maybe I can connect you to Ryan, right? And I've done that a couple different times. And I think that's really the secret, right? I guess secret's the wrong word, right? That's kind of the formula,
Mm.
maybe. And the second part to what I've been able to do, I think, is really be intentional about it.
Mm.
Like, I'm very proud to say that I have a community of people out in Kauai, Hawaii, Hanalei Bay specifically, that I have connected to and built, and been out there 6 or 7 times. But I was intentional about offering me as a human, me as a person out there. And I went out there and I found the jiu-jitsu gym, and I said, hey, listen, I at the time I was teaching kids wrestling. I said, hey, I'd love to teach wrestling out there, which is something you'd be interested in me coming to do. Like, I don't, I just want to do it for fun and help out the kids, and I'm on vacation. It'll be a fun thing for me to do. So I met Bruno, who happens to be an incredible human and a stud jiu-jitsu practitioner. And through that, he introduced me to some other people on the island. And, now when Corey and I go out there, we kind of have a community of people.
Mm.
But I think that was intentional, right? So, what other aspects of building, becoming a connector, building community, can you think of?
Yeah. No, this is interesting. I'm glad that we chose this topic today because, I think you have this kind of understanding of what it is that you do, and you think this is what you do to build community, but I think you do something different. And I'll give you an example. I do those same things. I'm very, very curious about people. I do take an interest in people. I really do care. I really do care about what people say, how they act, and how they think. And I think it's fascinating, and I love talking to people. But I don't have that same connector ability that I would think of like for some people. And maybe it's a bit of a spectrum, right? I definitely connect certain people. Like, I do that, but I don't know if it's as easy for me. I don't know if it's something that I would, I don't know if it's just like my traits bring me to that. And I've thought a lot about it. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think people just function different in society. And, the connecting kind of thing is really, it's just not what I'm meant for. And that's okay. Um, but you know what? I do a lot of the things that you just said that you do. I care. I'm curious. I take an interest. I talk to new people as best I can. But I think, where we differ is that you are very open. It's very easy to get into a conversation with you, and you 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 make it easy to talk to you because you open up that whatever that guard is, right? And for me, I find myself maybe a little bit more like personal, a little bit more secretive, and maybe there's something kind of like cool about that. Maybe I kind of like that a little bit. Maybe I like to be a little bit of a mystery. Um, but I'm not entirely. I think this is again kind of like a personality trait. But just as you kind of you're very open and you're very expressive and you're very clear with your emotions and whatnot. At least in the conversations that we have, and at least of what I've seen from you. Um, yeah, I'm kind of like the opposite. I'm a little bit more tight-lipped on that kind of stuff, and always been that kind of way. And so I think that really is a defining feature of people who connect well, because you make people feel comfortable through your own expression of comfort. And yeah, so what do you think about that? And have you always been that way?
So, for those of you that don't know, we usually don't talk about this stuff before. But man, thank you, by the way. Just this thing came to mind, and I ran across this picture of myself and my cousin, and I was standing, and for those of you that can't see, I was standing with my hand down and my palm facing my cousin, and I showed this picture to one of the moms that I've become friendly with, that I coach their kids, and she goes, "Oh my God, that's how you stand when you talk to the kids."
Hmm.
And that picture was from me in high school,
Wow.
and I was like, "Really?" I'm like, "That's really interesting." And she's like, "Yeah, I could tell that you stand that way in order to help the kids feel safe and open." And so we didn't have this conversation before. I never even thought about it before until she said that. I never thought about it. And then again, I haven't thought about it in years, but maybe it's something that I learned along the way to be open, disarming, genuine. But as far as, that's just a body language cue, which is crazy to think about now. Like, maybe it is something, the way I approach people, the way I stand, the way I know that, and Corey just recently said something to me there. I will sometimes put myself, she actually pointed this out, I put myself down a little bit in order to allow people to feel a certain way, to make sure people feel disarmed, like I'm not talking down to them. I'm saying, I'm on your level, if not below, which I didn't realize I did. But maybe that's another aspect of this whole thing. I never really thought about it. I'm thinking about it on the spot for all of you, or anybody listening to this. But yeah, no, I know that it is my intention to learn and listen, and I know that I have the ability to kind of allow people to speak and be intentional about my responses. And a lot of times people choose to tell me things that are maybe a little deeper than surface level. I think that is a part of having connection. So yeah, that's
Yeah, no, Yeah, maybe that body language, that like welcoming kind of like stance that you do, maybe that is just like a manifestation of, what you're thinking and how your actual intentions for that. And so, yeah, no, I do find it interesting, and I think you being in that way, like kind of disarming people, does yield to better connections, right? And for a lot of people, myself, speaking to myself, I can do all the, I can have all the pristine intentions, and I can be curious about people, and I can ask them questions about themselves, and I do. I'm a very like inquisitive person, but there is a balance that people don't necessarily feel disarmed by questions. In fact, they might feel the exact opposite, like probing, and wow, he's too curious. Like, what's he? What is his angle, right? But so unless you're open enough, unless you're yes, asking questions and being interested in the person, but I think you also you have to be open. You have to let people in, and say, well, here's how I'm feeling, and here's the things that I'm struggling with, and I think that's an important aspect, not often discussed about making connections. And you seem to do that well. And have you have you ever thought about that? Like, is that come into your cognizance? Like, ooh, I got to be open here because it's important.
No, nope, I don't think so. I do think that there's where I'm going to get. I'm going to change the subject a little bit, but I do think there's something about energy
Hmm.
that connects us. I do feel that one of the things that makes me successful in this regard is that I have a knack, an intuition, a gut feeling about somebody's energy, and maybe the way that maybe I'm great at body language, maybe I'm have a knack for something, but I can genuinely tell right if someone's interesting, feeling a certain way. Their
Hmm.
guard is up, their guard is down, and I don't know how to quantify that.
Yeah.
But there's definitely something there. Like I know I do joke all the time. Like I can walk in my house and I know it's very rare, by the way, Corey, you're out there. It's very rare.
Sure it
She's
is.
in a bad mood, right? And I know, I can tell, right? Her body, she doesn't even have to be facing me. I can just
Feel
feel
it.
it. You walk into a room, maybe you can tell, right? You can tell someone's just had an argument.
Mhm.
It's weird. And maybe I'm a little more receptive to that
Right.
than your average person.
Mhm.
Um, but I will say another aspect of this thing, and I know I'm kind of changing gears, but I do want to talk about this. When you, I'm trying to figure out how to state this so it doesn't sound like I'm being crazy, but the people that you become the closest to oftentimes are people that you've gone through conflict with.
Mm.
So not necessarily conflict individually. Me and you don't have to have the conflict,
Mhm.
but let's say that there was an external conflict that weighed on both of us, and we collectively found a way to battle through that. And that I found brings people together quite a bit
Mm.
faster than just being friends for a certain amount of time. Right? Time helps because you have experiences with those people, and we kind of touched on this as far as like being receptive and reciprocal, right? Like you have a problem, your toilet's broken, and I know how to fix it, and I come over and help you fix the toilet. Like we become better friends. Right?
Mm.
We've had this common experience that helps us to become closer, right? And now, if you want to extrapolate that out and say, hey, you have a really bad problem, like a problem that like puts you down in the dumps, and
Mm.
I come over and I'm like, hey, listen, I can help you with that. Let's talk it through. Let's figure it out. Like, then you become closer
Mm.
in a certain way. And I do think this is accurate and true if we have a conflict, right? Like
Mm.
something you disagree, I disagree. We have to really like hammer it out, whether it's, whether it gets to the yelling point or the arguing point or the name calling point, right? And then you come back through that. I think that's a real part of building connection
Mm.
that I think is very often overlooked.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, especially on the person to person conflict. You, when you come back from that, you recognize that the relationship transcends whatever argument or conflict that was, and I think that's empowering to know that people are in it, right? People are in it. You know, if you and I have a disagreement and we're strongly identified to it and being very egoic, which I don't think would ever happen, but you know, you never know. Um, I think that if we were to resolve that and say, well, you know, we're different or whatever it is, that bond would transcend the actual problem, and that would be very powerful for us to experience. But I like how you kind of suggest that shared conflict, and it doesn't have to be the same conflict. It's just like the shared experience almost. I do think that's important, and 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 probably, you know, actually it makes me think of another kind of, I don't know, connection strategy is asking for favors, right? Like when they find, I don't have any of the exact details in my conscious awareness anymore, but they find that people who ask favors actually have stronger connections to those who provide them the favor, because of whatever reason. Maybe they feel that they're useful in the relationship or whatever it might be. But have you heard that before?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think there's now that we're having this conversation, I'm realizing that I read this book quite some time ago. It's by Robert Cialdini. It's actually a Harvard Business School book. Just so we're clear, I read like the Cliff Notes version. It's called the 30-Minute Expert Series. I can't find it anymore, but it was incredible. It definitely changed the way I view how to influence people. And what I found is that I do these things, and I'm kind of coming out of my shell here in the second part of this interview or discussion, because I'm realizing that, yeah, I implemented some of these things on purpose in my professional life. Right. And my job for a very long time was to come in and influence. They call it indirect management, indirect leadership. Like, I didn't have the stick, I only had the carrot, and I had whatever ability I had to influence you, right? And taking interest in actually you as an individual was a huge piece to that. And lucky for me, I like that. I'm very interested in people. So, but the six powers, see if I can remember off the top of my head. Well, I'll start with the one that we talk about, is reciprocation, right? Asking you for that pen, believe it or not, allows reciprocation. It allows me, allows us to kind of open that barrier between, hey, I'm going to do this for you, you do this for me. That's a big piece to influencing people. Being seen as an authority is a huge piece, right? They've done study after study after study. If I walked in here with a lab coat on and sat down, right, people are going to take me more serious than they are not. If I walked in here with a police officer's uniform on, I mean, forget about it. I could tell you to turn around and put your hands behind your back, right? I mean, that's real.
Yeah.
The second one that stuck out to me was social norm, right? And when I go through these, I want you to watch some TV later and think about the actual which one of these is the commercial that you're watching using, because they're all using it, right? Social norm. They did a study where they were trying to bring down the community's electricity usage. Okay, so like each individual house has an electric, and so they sent letters. Hey, your electric usage is too high. We would like you to bring your electricity down, right? No effect. Then they sent another letter that said, hey, your neighbor's electricity use is half of what you're using, to everybody. And they found that actually worked because it made the people feel that they were not part of the normal aspects of society. And there's countless examples of this, right? Like everybody's doing it. The whole, like, come on down. Like,
never think, and I'm not super into this anyways, but you go into a new house and the neighbor's lawn looks great and you're sitting there with a dumpy old lawn. There is something there. There is like, dang, like I could do this. I don't really care, but Joe Schmo cares, and so do I care?
Yeah, 100%. And that's your social norm, right? So that's reciprocation. That's power. That's power of authority. That's social norm. The big one, and the one that I kind of adopted for myself, was the liking, right? Simply put, people are going to be influenced by people that they like, right? Let's face it. I used LeBron James earlier, right? Like, is LeBron James an expert in like soda? No, but does he sell soda for people because he's the Sprite guy? Absolutely. And why? Because he's looked at as someone that's successful and they like him, right? So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Another one that's pretty cool is scarcity. How many commercials have you seen that end with the words "limited time only"?
All right.
Right? Act now. It's limited time only. Only 10 left, right? That's going to influence people. That is absolutely one of the powers of influence. I'm trying to think of that sixth one. I'm pumped if I can come up with the sixth one off the top of my head.
Impressive, just right off the rip. No,
yeah.
No premeditation.
No, zero. You talk. I'll think. Sure. I got one left.
Yeah, I mean, kind of what you're talking about too is this like this idea, this influence, right? And I think isn't that what the book's called? Something
the
about
power of influence.
Power of influence. Yeah, and yeah, there are ways to influence people, and all the things that you mentioned, I can attest to. Even just like I get emails all the time, like this is the limited time only, and well, I know it's not limited time only, and so I'm privy to that idea that the limited time and the scarcity of time is causes people to want to act right then and there. So I'm always a little like, you tell me limited time only, I'm never gonna buy that.
Yeah, I love it. I recently saw what is it, January? We're doing this in January. There's a Wendy's commercial that is like a Wendy's billboard up around our area that is it's old. It's actually it should be. I think it's old. I don't really know. But it's got it's real fruit in their salads, right? It's like a big thing. It says like, while supplies last, right? Like, and it's like January here, and it's like, okay, I don't know. I'm not so sure about that.
I gotta go
billboard.
Get my fresh Wendy's fruit.
Fresh fruit. That's fresh local fruit.
That's
and it's
funny.
like, that's probably not ideal.
Well, that's what the McRib's all about, right? The McRib is like disgusting. It comes back for like 3 months, and people are like, "Oh my,
gotta get my McRib." Yeah, they realize they can't sell it all year because it's gross, but they can like cram it into 3 months. People will be like, "I gotta have my McRib this year."
It's like people who've never eaten a McRib before. They're like, "Oh, the McRib is back! Like I gotta get part of this." Yeah, maybe a little divergence off of building connections and being a connector and whatnot. But I think as you were talking about some of the things that you do, I do believe that there are plenty of things you do consciously that are sales oriented, or just from your leadership training or community training or whatever it might be. I definitely I see that, but there is a quality within you too that is a little harder to see. And I think that's also an interesting concept, that we have these skills, these underlying skills that aren't really tangible. They're not really something that I can say, your openness level is 50 out of 100. Like, good for you. Like, you've been leveling that up. I can't say that. I can't particularly, explain it to you, but there are things about you and other people and ourselves that we're building these skills every day, and sometimes it's easy to get down on ourselves, like, oh, we're not doing enough, we're not learning enough, but you are doing something, you are building something. Additionally too, I think what's interesting about you and I and how we're different is we were raised much differently. You were raised in a house of chaos and no privacy, and I was raised in the exact opposite. Very low chaos, just nothing going on, just me and my thoughts, right? And so kind of a stark difference, but it's, here we are.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I think that it's at some point, we've talked about this before, right? You have to take. It's not where you came from. It's what you're doing with it, right? It's not what happens to you. It's how you handle it, and you have to be intentional. Choose your path, choose your intention, and go after it. And maybe I did at some point make the conscious decision that I wanted to build a community. I know I made the conscious decision that I wanted to have good people around me, and that maybe that led me down that path, right? And maybe I did start being more open. And I'm very sure, since you brought up kind of my childhood, that my ability to excel, stand out in a crowd is because I had 13 people at my dinner table every night, right? There was always some conflict, right? 13 people that live together, there's gonna be some something, right? It's not always perfect. I can promise you that. So my ability to read people is probably comes from that. But I'm grateful. I think is the word. I'm grateful that my path has kind of brought me around as someone that you see as a connector and someone that does enjoy building community. It benefits me tremendously to have people around me that I can connect with and connect to.
Right. Yeah, no, and that kind of speaks to the things that we go through, right? Like at one point in your life, you're probably like, oh man, like 13 people, this is chaos. Like I get no privacy. And I'm sure there's moments where you just did not, want that or like that. But yet, here you are, many years later recognizing, whoa, that's actually an important trait that was developed at time, an important skill, a hidden skill, if you want to put it that way, that was developing, like being in the presence of a crowd almost all the time. And were they particularly like family, particularly like inquisitive about your day and your feelings and stuff like that? Were people always asking, or not really?
Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%. My aunts, my mom, my aunts and uncles, like we got to grow up before cell phones, right? Which is really kind of an interesting thing to think about, right? And we were always at the dinner table pretty much at the same time, which is actually speaks a lot to my eating habits. There's that openness. I eat very fast. That's kind of how it works when you have 13 people eating at the same time.
It's a very real thing.
Yeah. But we were always there, talking about your day and kind of catching up and hearing about somebody else's day and how it went. So yeah, that was definitely accurate.
Was it, and now it's just pure curiosity.
Sure.
Was it ever the thing where you had to like fight for the space to tell people about your day?
Well, don't forget, most of this was me being a teenager, so I had no problem not talking about my day. Right. But yeah, no, there was definitely times where you felt like that somebody else was kind of overshadowing, right? That something that was happening to them was more important than something that was happening to you, and probably just true, but you felt it that way. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah. So then, being the person that you are, recognizing some of those traits that you excel at and some, that you're working on, what are some ways, like maybe some actionable things that people can do to connect better, to build these like authentic connections? And by that, I mean, people who have no problem telling you real things. And this has been like a pet peeve of mine, throughout the years. Obviously I'm working on it. It's getting better for me, but a lot of the time I'll talk with people, and sometimes I will, sometimes, because I'm not, I get a little bit more private, but sometimes I will bring up like very real topics, and it's kind of like playing patty cake. This is what I say. It's like, the conversation is more of a game than being truly authentic, right? So it's like I almost know what the person's going to say, and they're going to be nice, and they're going to be cordial, and it's going to be like things that people generally want to hear. But a lot of time I don't want to hear what people think I want to hear. I want to hear like, give it to me authentically. And so, sometimes I find that in conversations I'm getting very much like this patty cake. But you had mentioned the other day that, you were not living by your I want to say like one of your morals, one of your a moral compass for you. We talked about the 4 agreements on the podcast before, and one of them is don't take things personal. Nothing is personal. A very important kind of law, right, of life, I suppose. But your friend Jason had said, well, I don't think you're living by that ideal. Something had happened, and he had pointed that out, and that's such valuable information, right? I can imagine someone saying, hey, I'm struggling with this conflict or this issue, and people are like, yeah, it's okay, it's gonna get better, like you're doing fine, like just chin up, but here you are with this authentic connection, and someone says, listen, I get it, that must be tough, but also you're not practicing what you preach. And I'm sure that's not easy for people to say, but he said it, and I thought, and you found that to be helpful.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And I absolutely wasn't. And I was taking a scenario that I was making very personal. It was this project wasn't going as fast as it was supposed to go, and I believed, or I internalized that as the person that was holding it up was holding it up, despite me.
Mm.
And for some reason, which doesn't even really make any sense, when I sat down and thankfully, once Jason said it to me, I sat down and broke it down in my head. I was like, oh, Jesus, why would that even be true?
Right.
It was kind of my default mechanism that I went back to. But if I didn't have a real connection with somebody, and they didn't feel like they could deliver that information to me, I probably would still be holding on and saying, oh, it's still, they're just doing it because they don't like me, or they,
Right.
they're not prioritizing me, or, these things. So that goes back to that building truly authentic. You got to be able to take it too. You got to be able to hear it. Mm-hmm. And that's that reciprocation law, right? Like, I'm not sure if I've been able to articulate something to Jason that maybe he needed to work on or identify. But I know that he's done it for me now. So I feel confident that in the future I'll be able to reciprocate that for him. And it goes back to that conflict, right? Like being okay a little bit, at least being okay with conflict, knowing that there's some that's inevitable in every relationship, right? We're not exactly the same. We're always going to have our different perspectives and our different points of view. And I mean, how many times have you had an acquaintance or somebody that's not that close to you that you had a different perspective on, and you just kind of like, okay, well, it's not worth discussing any further or whatever. That person doesn't matter to me. So there, think about it. We've all done it. We're all going to continue to do it, but maybe sometimes, go out of your way to say, I'd like to better understand. I'd like to continue. I don't want to just play patty cake on this issue. I'd like to talk it through and understand where you come from. I think we all get to learn that way. We all grow that way.
Yeah. I do find it particularly compelling when you see people being, acting, believing in ways that are a little different. I think it's kind of cool. I'm like, yeah, where does that come from? What makes you tick? Right? Like that's so interesting. So
yeah.
So what are the actionable steps then? If you were to like lay out some, and I know that I'm kind of throwing you on the spot with some actionable things, but in terms of like your ability to summarize and collect the information, I'm hearing reciprocation, I'm hearing openness, I'm hearing talking to people, expanding networks. Like in your eyes, what are the steps?
Sure. Well, I would think number one is be intentional. Right. My goal. My goal is to meet some new people and get to know them, understand what they do and who they are, and not rush. Right. It's not like a speed dating thing, right? Okay, cool. That's what I know about this person, and so far everything seems like they, don't be afraid to ask real intentional questions too, right? Be curious. Really be curious. Like not curious like, hey, you're on an interview here, but like, how was your day? Oh, it was good. Cool. What made it so good? Right. And I think these second level questions, they So a lot of times they'll catch people off guard because they're so used to playing patty cake, right? I mean, how many times have you said, our society is filled with, hey, what's up? No, you don't even answer that question.
Yeah.
You answer that with, hey, what's up?
Not much.
Not much, right? How are you? Fine, right? Like, go a little further, go dig a little deeper. Okay, cool. Like, what was so good about today, right? And be positive. Be somebody that people want to talk to. I think that we've all run into the people that you play that game, you do ask a deeper level question, and like their headspace is super negative, and you leave there walking away and being like, whoa, Jesus, that person hates everything about everything, right? Like, and maybe you just caught them in a bad day, right? So I would say be intentional, be curious. The openness, I think, it is disarming, but it also allows people to recognize that you're just as human as they are. And then don't be afraid to follow up, right? Like, remember, hey, the last time we talked, you said you had just got a new job. Like, how's that going, right? And there are some other things that I wouldn't say necessarily like I intentionally do, but remember their name. When I joined the jiu-jitsu community over there, right, how many is he up to? There's got to be 100 guys, right?
I mean, there's 80 on the mats on Mondays sometimes.
Yeah, so let's call it 200,
yeah.
right? And you run across all these people, and you ask them their name, of course, and right, but let's face it, like, how does that go for you? Don't be afraid to ask them again. Ask them again and again and again. Take interest in their name at least, and you start to know, oh my God, actually, I know that guy Ryan from jiu-jitsu that I remember him saying he's a registered dietitian, right? I don't know him that well, but I can certainly talk to him and ask him questions and get back to you, right?
And use it, right? This is a powerful thing too. Use the name. Hey, MJ, right? I know when people use my name, it feels strong. I don't know why. It's just like, hey man, it like doesn't feel really personal, although it's fine, right? But you say like, hey Joe, right? Like, hey Jason, right? That kind of stuff actually is powerful for people.
Oh, definitely. And if you want to like just laugh a little bit, like especially, I don't know, do women? We'll have to ask God. Do women have the same like amount of what's the word you would use when you bro, guy, dude, man, friend,
right?
Chick, woman, person, you know what I mean? Like, what do they say? What do they say?
Yeah.
We have
God. Do women say that kind of stuff? Yeah. She says not necessarily. There's lady, there's chick, there's sis, but not really. Interesting.
We got tons.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I can walk in there and call everybody a different thing.
It'd feel fine.
It feel fine.
Yeah.
And
except don't call me buddy.
You don't like that one?
I don't like buddy. Buddy feels condescending, huh?
Really?
Is that just me?
I think that might be a you thing.
Yeah. Hey buddy. I'm not your buddy, pal.
All right, noted.
Why can't I connect to people? Because I'm
somebody calls me buddy and they're out immediately.
Blacklisted. I'll never talk to them again.
F that guy. I don't even care what his name is. I always thought dude was a weird one.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
dude.
dude, I don't even know. What is a dude? Like,
Yeah. It's a little outdated.
It does. Is it?
I think so.
It's like previous.
Hey dude, where's my car? Or where's my car?
Dude, where's my great
Yeah.
movie?
Yeah.
Okay, no. Movie.
Yeah. Oh. Okay. So we got some actionable things. The other last thing I would say is that especially when it comes to building a business, or when it comes to transforming yourself or changing or whatever it is that you're searching for, it really only takes one connection to make a massive difference. And so not every person is going to be a connector, but every person has the potential to be a connector. And the power of having a person like that in your life, not to say that we use people by any means, but it is powerful to have people who have a network in your life. And I think about when we started building the practice, we ran through, a number of folks, and we talked to a number of referrals and all that kind of stuff. And I will say, the Pareto principle, pays off well here. Maybe 20%, maybe 80% of all our referrals comes from 20% of sources, right? And so, understanding that it really only takes one person to make a massive difference, even if that's like you are opening our labs, right? You're gonna get one referral source outside of maybe like the gym and everything. You're gonna get one referral source that really pushes people to you, that for whatever reason their uncanny ability to connect with people and an uncanny ability to be trustworthy and be the guy who or the gal who knows about great stuff, right? You're going to find that person, and they're going to shuffle all their people your way, and it happens all the time. And so that's why when I'm currently looking for referrals, sometimes I do blanket kind of stuff like marketing, whatever, and I'm really just hoping for one. If I can send out 100 packets to like people and therapists and whatever, and if I could say, well, if even one of these gets me a phone call, that's massive. The potential there is massive.
I love it.
Yeah, cool. All right. Well, yeah. So
hold on, I gotta come up with it real quick.
Okay,
I think I don't want to go look it up. I want to try to come up with it off the top of my head. So you ready?
Yep.
The 6 ways that people are influenced by Robert Cialdini.
Mm-hmm.
Number 1, authority. People believe in authority figures. Presenting yourself as an authority will help. 2, liking. People do things for people they like, simply put. 3, reciprocation. Reciprocal. We do this for you, you do this for me. We'll have an influence over that all the time. Number 4, social norm. Being part of this wave where things are, oh my God, you don't have this, right? Or you do have this. Oh, everybody's doing this. I should be doing it as well, right? You want to test this? Look up in the sky and just stare in the sky and see if you can find 5 people to stare in the sky. You're guaranteed to get 6 person staring at the sky. Yeah. Number 5.
You got it.
I got it. Scarcity. Yeah. We talked about that one. Yeah. Scarcity. People are influenced when they think that something's going to run out. They're not going to get enough. That's it. And then we're going to have to cut this whole part out because I can't come up with the 6th one.
No, come on.
It's on the tip of my tongue. I can't wait. I'm going to be so frustrated when I have to go look this one up.
You presented it like you had the...
I thought I did, and then I got the same 5. All right, you know what? I'm changing gears. You should go read the book. You should take a look. Or I think that it's at least worth a cursory glance or a Google search, or maybe nowadays a Chat GPT. What are the 6 ways that people are influenced by others, and see how many of them you're affected by, and see how many of them you actually use in your daily life, maybe your work environment. And maybe we'll just add a quick add-on to this one when I come up with the 6th one.
I love it. All right. Cool. Well, yeah, please, if you enjoyed what you listened to or watched today, please, give us a like. You can find our Instagram below, and we'd be more than happy to hear from you. Please share with us some topics that you'd like to hear about, or drop us a comment, drop us a follow, all that kind of stuff on Spotify, and we will catch you next time.